If I had a hidden microphone inside of my heart, I would turn the power on. It would amplify my love for you and swear to always love you, and you'd never be gone. But with just one look into your eyes, I become excited, and it's no surprise that the words get stuck in my throat. The words get stuck in my throat. And every time I call, I can't speak at all because the words get stuck in my throat. The words get stuck in my throat. The words get stuck in my throat.
People, LP2000, right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju. And I'm your host, Leslie P. Chambers, and today we're taking a look at another X Plus figure release. Yes, a figure set release. And I'm so excited about this release because it comes from one of my most favorite Kaiju films of all time. So let's dive head first into this review. And today we're taking a look at the X Plus 25 centimeter version 2 or alternate set of Sanda vs. Gaira from the classic 1966 Kaiju film, Frankenstein's Monster, Sanda vs. Gaira, also known better here in the United States as War of the Gargantuas. And as you can see, I have the beautiful figures here. Yes, they are. Yes, the great green and brown Kaiju brothers with anger management issues. Yes, is now here in a new 25 centimeter set. And you know we do things around here. Let's get into the box before we get into the figure. And this is the box. Yes, I love this box. Really cool artwork on the box. You know, Sanda and Gaira. You know, 25 centimeter scale, Frankenstein's Monster, Sanda versus Gaira. I don't really know what this means down here at the bottom right here. Because that's the thing about this release. This is a Rick exclusive release. And we don't know exactly what particular set this is. Of course, this is Sanda versus Gaira. But they already made a 25 centimeter release of the Gargantuas. The standard release of the first set was just Sanda and Gaira, you know, standing alone, you know, separately. The Rick versions of those figures is the fact that you can combine the two in a combined set where you can lock them in a combat pose. You know, they come in alternate limbs where you can attach Sanda to Gaira or Gaira to Sanda to position them in a locked combat pose like they're struggling or they're fighting. You know, that was the Rick version of those figures when it first came out. This set, like I said, there's not an official name of it, so I'm just gonna call it either version 2 or the poster edition, because there's a Japanese poster of Sanda versus Gaira where Sanda's like this on the ground with his arms out, you know, and Gaira is leaping up in the air, you know, ready to pounce onto Sanda. So either this is the version 2 release or this is the poster edition. Either way, it's reminiscent of the poster and a backstage production still of Gaira in the air, midair, ready to jump on to Sanda. So this is really what is reminiscent of that, you know. And this is such a great release. Once again, this was a Rick exclusive release. Want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Tyler Boots Carlson for making that happen. And once again, y'all know me. If you know me and are familiar with my channel, you already know how I feel about War of the Gargantuas or Frankenstein's Monster, Sanda vs. Gaira. I so love this film. It's my second favorite Kaiju film of all time. So this was a release that I have to have. Now, is a release do I recommend everybody to have? We'll get to that later on. But yes, that's pretty much it, you know. The backstory about this, it just got released, I want to say like a week ago to 2 weeks ago. And just getting into collectors' hands. And by me being such a Gargantua fan, I had to have this release. And like I said, with the previous release of the 25 centimeter Gargantuas that came out last year, they decided to bring forth this set. Now, the first time we ever saw these figures was at the Winter Wonder Festival show last year in Japan, where that show they showcased the anime Godzilla that got released in June that year, Frankenstein that got released in June that year, the 25 centimeter Gargantuas that got released in June that year, and they also showcased these Gargantuas like in the background, because they had like this elaborate, awesome setup X Plus did at their booths of a whole bunch of figures that they were going to be, you know, producing and releasing later on that year. And they had information about the original Gargantua, the 25 centimeter version I'm talking about, but this was there for display purposes. And at that point, we were asking, are they going to release these at some point, you know? But X Plus didn't really confirm anything. You know, they kind of made it seem like, yeah, we may get around to it at some point, you know? And eventually they got around to it. It took a year, but they finally got around to it. And I love that. I love that X Plus is going into these other kaiju films. You know, of course, the popular films are, of course, Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman, you know, but it's nice that they're going into these alternative kaiju films to bring out figures of those kaijus, like from War of the Gargantuas, you know, or from hopefully they'll do something with King Kong Escapes, or, you know, just other alternative kaiju films, or Gulala from X from Outer Space. You know, so it's nice that they're going into those directions to bring out these other kaijus from these other films that we love. You know, it's nice to have Godzilla. I get that. It's nice to have Gamera and Ultraman. I get that also. But it's also nice to have these other kaijus from these other films that we love so much. And once again, since I'm a huge Gargantua fan, I had to have this release. Now, I mentioned earlier, would I recommend this set to anybody that's interested in getting these? And I was going to save this to later on into the review, but before we get up close and personal with the Gargantuas, I might as well address this now. If you will recall my review of the Flying King Ghidorah 1968 that I put out a couple months ago, I mentioned in that video, in case you don't know, he's up here. You probably can't see him, but he's way up there. X Plus released 1968 alternate flying version of King Ghidorah. It's basically the same sculpt as the original King Ghidorah 1968 that they put out, 25 centimeter. But with this flying version, they kind of altered the legs of that King Ghidorah and the tails a little bit to make him more positioned in an aerodynamic flying pose. And they also include some clamps and a stand to position him in midair to simulate him flying. And I mentioned in that video that if you already have the original 1968 King Ghidorah and don't have the extra money for it, I don't really see the need to go after the flying one. But if you're a huge King Ghidorah fan and if you have the extra money, I say go for it. The same principle applies here with the Gargantuas. Now, if you already have the original 25 centimeter Gargantua set that came out last year, and if you're on the fence about getting these, I would say the same thing like I said when it comes to the Flying King Ghidorah 1968. If you already have the Gargantuas, and if you don't have the money right now for it, and I can understand because X Plus, even though it's been kind of quiet for the past like month, I think X Plus is brewing up a lot of things, and they're going to open the floodgates in like a month or so with all this stuff that's coming out. Not to mention the stuff that we already know is coming, like the Gigantic 89 Godzilla, or the Sakai Godzilla 2002, or the King Ghidorah 1964, Orga, Iris, the Mecha King Ghidorah, the Death of Real Zilla. Just lots of stuff that's coming that we already know is coming at some point. But I believe that there are a lot of stuff that will be coming that they don't know about yet, which is why we haven't really heard a lot going on right now. So if you don't have the money for this, I can understand you passing on this if you already have the original 25 centimeter set or the original 30 centimeter set Gargantuas. However, if you're a huge fan of the Gargantuas like myself, and if you have the extra money, I say go for it, you know, because they basically are pretty much the same as the original 25 centimeter set. Pretty much from the torsos up, you know, they're pretty much the same. The only thing that's different is with Sanda here, he's more bracing himself for Gaira to land on him, which is why his legs are kind of like a little bit more stumpy in a way, and he's flexing his legs to brace for Gaira's impact for him to land on him. And with Gaira, it's the same thing. With him being midair, he's not, you know, he's not a full size 25 centimeter figure with his legs and his knees upwards, you know, because he is in the midair position. That's basically the only difference between the this set, the Gargantuas, the 25 centimeter Gargantuas I'm talking about, and the original 25 centimeter Gargantuas. Both come with a base like this, you know. Both, like I said, are basically the same from the torsos up. The only difference between the two is the fact that you can't interlock these two, and the fact that, like I said, the lower bodies on both Gargantuas are different. Now, like I said, is it worth the extra money? It just depends on your situation. Like I said, if you're a huge Gargantua fan and if you have the extra money, I say yes. If you don't really need it and you're fine with what you got, that's fine too. But for me personally, for my situation, I had to have these Gargantuas, and they're awesome. They really is awesome. So that's pretty much it with the backstory involving the Gargantuas, this new set of the Gargantuas. Once again, I don't really know what to call them. Like I said, I probably would call them version 2 or the poster edition. Like I said, it's very reminiscent of the poster. But once again, this is such an awesome set, and it really is a dynamic presentation, especially with Gaira in midair like this. And I like how they going into more aerial kaijus other than kaijus that can fly, because Gaira can't fly. Now with other kaijus they have done that simulate them flying, like King Ghidorah, Fire Rodan, especially Mothra, you know, those, you know, we can understand them being mid-air kaijus and they look good. Now with this one, with Gaira, he looks really good with him in mid-air, you know, like I said, especially when it comes to photo opportunities. If you shoot Sanda from the back with Gaira looming above him in the background, it looks really good. Hopefully you'll appreciate that in the slideshow of pictures going towards the tail end of this video. Now let me address Gaira. Now, because when this set was announced, they put up production photos of this set. However, as you can see right here, Gaira is suspended in midair because he's sitting on a pole. And when this first was announced on the X Plus Collectors Facebook group that I'm a part of, and other Facebook groups that I'm a part of, I can't even begin to tell you how many jokes and how many perceived funny jokes that I heard about, you know, a pole going to Gaira's bottom and all the other mess. After the first 4 or 5 jokes, that's fine, but when you get up to like 50 to 100, it gets really just annoying, you know? All right, we get it. All right, you think Gaira is savage and upset and evil because he has a pole in his whatever, and I'm not gonna spend too much time on this because I don't have the mind of a 10-year-old perverted child. But I want to say, as far as X Plus is concerned, like I said, if you saw the production photos, it clearly shows just the pole going into to Gaira's backside. But what they did, they actually offer a cradle. There's a cradle that you can put on top of the pole, and then you insert the cradle into Gaira's backside, and he's more or less sitting comfortably in that cradle. You know, it offers more stability. So I'm glad that X Plus went as far as giving us that for Gaira, you know, because I think over time, if Gaira just had to rely on the pole alone to sit there, I think maybe once the weather changes, you know, maybe he'll shift. Because maybe a figure of Gaira's size and weight here, maybe it'll you know, make the pole shift. Now, I never had any problems with my Mothras that had this same type of effect going on, you know. But with Mothra, she's more stabilized, or she has more stability because of her wings. You know what I mean? Gaira doesn't have that, so I can see over time that if they didn't have this cradle, Gaira may shift. You know, because of his weight. But with him sitting basically perfectly on this cradle, it provides a little bit more stability for Gaira to be in his mid-air pose. Once again, kudos to X Plus for making that happen. But that's pretty much it for us. Like I said, the backstory, the ins and outs of the figure, the figures, the release, you know, whatever. My recommendations, if you want to go after this, it just depends on your situation. You know, weigh the pros and cons, then make the decision. And I highly recommend this set. Like I said, if you're a huge Gargantua fan, if you have the money for it, please go after this set. If not, I can totally understand. So with that being said, let's get up close and personal with this newly acquired set of the 25 centimeter Gargantuas, Sanda versus Gaira from War of the Gargantuas. Let's get up close and personal right now. Okay, folks, here we are up close and personal with the newly acquired set, the Vic exclusive set of Sanda versus Gaira from War of the Gargantuas. Yes, the poster edition, or version 2. Oh, man, yeah. But as you can see, these Gargantuas look really, really awesome. I'll bring up the original 25 centimeter set in a few seconds, but I just want to give these guys the glory and the focus for right now. Once again, they look great, especially with Gaira in midair like this, you know. Just once again, that as you can see the cradle a little bit better here in this shot. Once again, it really makes Gaira more stable on top of that pole and gives him more stability, like I said. So I really do like that. Now, Sanda, you know, one thing about Sanda, you can actually shift his head to make him look upwards, or you can make him look down or whatever, but I like positioning my Sanda like this, where he's looking upwards at Gaira, rightfully so, since Gaira is in midair. And like the previous Gargantuas, the 25 centimeter Gargantuas, both Gargantuas, you can open their heads and you can shift their eyes, you know what I mean? Not only did the original 25 centimeter Gargantuas had that, Frankenstein, the 25 centimeter Frankenstein had that. Honestly, I've never really messed with that. When I got my Gargantuas and Frankenstein last year, I just never really messed around with the eyes, even though it's nice to have that option. The only time where, you know, it might become prevalent or noticeable if you take close-up shots of Sanda's and Gaira's or Frankenstein's face. But I've never cracked open their heads and shift their eyes to make them, you know, look in different positions and stuff like that. But once again, it's nice to have that option. As I always say, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. If you already seen my video of the 25 centimeter Gargantuas, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here in this video, because pretty much, like I said, they're pretty much the same Gargantuas. This set is pretty much the same Gargantuas from the torsos up, and when I bring up the other Gargantuas, you'll see why. Now, what also made this set worth getting from me, aside from the fact that Gaira is in midair, and it gives like an alternate battle pose between these two Gargantuas versus having them interlocked in combat. The paint apps on these are really, really, really amazing, and I'm going to say it right now, these are the best paint apps X Plus has ever done when it comes to the Gargantuas. Nothing against the original 25 centimeter set, which is good. You know, they're good on those figures and they're awesome. But with these Gargantuas, they look so amazing, crisp, dynamic, more richer colors. You know, especially on Gaira. Now with Gaira in particular, they did one step further with him. They also applied like a little subtle hints of red paint on his side of his head, on his chest, on his arms, to simulate him being wounded. Because, you know, at this point, Gaira was wounded by the military, and he pretty much carried those wounds throughout the film. So I like how X Plus went as far as to simulate those red patches on his body, or at least the red paint apps, you know, to simulate a wounded Gaira. So that's really, really nice. Once again, these are just great Gargantuas. They really speak for themselves. Sanda, you know, with the dark browns here and there, the light browns here and there, the dry brushing on his chest, as well as his torso and the underbody of his arms. You know, once again, they just took the original 25 centimeter Gargantuas, which already looked great and which already looked awesome, and just improved on the paint apps, you know. And I didn't think that was possible because up until then I thought those were the best looking Gargantuas paint wise that I've ever seen. And I'm thinking to myself, how could it get better than this? But somehow, some way, X Plus pulled it off. They pulled it off with this set, and they amazed me even more so once I got them in my hands. Now, don't get me wrong, the production photos were already awesome, and it was already enough for me to say, you know what, I'm getting these. You know, I didn't think about it. I didn't deliberate. I'm like, I'm gonna get these, no matter what. And now that I got them in my hand, these Gargantuas are amazing. Sculpt-wise, paint-wise, once again, it offers a different look to the Gargantuas battling, you know, versus having them interlock in combat like the original 25 centimeter set. Now they're apart, and it creates a more exciting, dynamic pose with Gaira in midair, ready to land on Sanda, or Sanda ready to catch Gaira and beat the crap out of him. Just an alternative looking, but yet most welcome set of the Gargantuas, and I highly recommend this set if you have the money, and if you're a Gargantua fan, you really need to have this set. This really is awesome. So that's pretty much it, you know, with the detail and the paint jobs and the sculpts of the Gargantuas. Like I said, they're not much different than the original 25 centimeter set. And speaking of the original 25 centimeter set, let's bring up the original 25 centimeter Gargantuas. After that, we'll have one more size comparison, a very interesting size comparison. And then we'll go in with my top 5 reasons why I love Sanda vs. Gaira or War of the Gargantuas. And then we'll wrap this review up. And thank you so much for hanging there with me so far. All right, let's bring up the first 25 centimeter set of the Gargantuas. Okay, folks, we are here with the first comparison between both sets of the 25 centimeter Gargantuas, Sanda vs. Gaira. And of course, you already know the flying one and the one on the far right. That's the new set, and the original set is Gaira's on the left hand side and Sanda that's in the middle. As you can see, they look well together. Really look well together. And I'll just provide some inserts as I talk about this. The noticeable differences between the two Gargantuas, or their respective Gargantuas, is of course, like I said, they're the same torso up. But on it's the lower bodies that are really different, and obviously so. But the paint jobs on both of these Gargantua sets are truly amazing, mesmerizing, if you will. Let's start with Gaira first. Gaira on the first set, you know, he has more of a lighter green on his chest. You know, just more of an aqua green, really. When I look at this version of Gaira, he kind of reminds me when he first comes out the ocean and his body is glistening with the water, you know, to kind of illuminate more of the greener texture on his body. That's what I really think about. Whereas the flying Gaira, he has more of a deeper green on his body. Once again, with the dirty red highlights on the flying Gaira's body to suggest of him being wounded, is really good. Let's start with Sanda. Let's go with Sanda. Once again, the paint apps are pretty much very similar between the two. The new Sanda has more of a deeper, richer paint job, kind of like Gaira in comparison to the original 25 centimeter Gaira. So I guess to put it all into a nutshell, because I had the original 30 centimeter Gargantuas and I sold them off, unfortunately. But I have had them in my possession at some point, so I know exactly what I'm talking about here. But I think, and I mentioned this on Facebook a couple of days ago on the X Plus Collectors Facebook group, that on a post that I made regarding these Gargantuas, that each set that X Plus has done for us, the Gargantuas, shines in their own unique way. Each set have their own superiority that makes them stand out against the other two. So with that being said, I think that when it comes to the Gargantuas from X Plus, I believe the 30 centimeters have the best sculpts. I prefer those sculpts of Sanda vs. Gaira, or Sanda and Gaira on the 30 centimeter. The original 25 centimeter set has the best rig option between this set and the new set. Even though I love this new set with Gaira flying and Sanda on the ground waiting to attack him or catch him. But between the two Rick sets, I prefer the original 25 centimeter. The fact that you can pose them separately or pose them together in a combat pose, I really do like that, and it's really very convenient and very easy to take apart the limbs, to separate them or to combine them. So far as a Rick set, I prefer the 25 centimeter. But when it comes to the overall Gargantua set that has the best paint apps, I'm going with this new set. Once again, the original 25 centimeter set, as you can see, did a great job with the paint job, even more so than the 30 centimeters, even more so than the Diamond reissue, even more so than the Winterfest versions, in my opinion, of the 30s. But somehow, some way, they just made them better with this new set. Like I said, richer, darker paint schemes. The bloody paint scheme or highlights on Gaira. They just took an already great paint app on the original 25 centimeters and just somehow made it better. So that's how I look at it when it comes to Gargantuas. My favorites, like I said, my favorite sculpts is the 30s. My favorite Rick is the original 25 centimeter set, and my favorite paint apps is for this new set. So that's just it with the comparison between the 25 centimeter set, the original 25 centimeter set of the Gargantuas, and this new set of the Gargantuas. And this will pretty much wrap up the first comparison. And we got one more size comparison, and let's see how this new 25 centimeter Gargantua set stands up against the King of the Monsters. And I think you know who I'm talking about. And let's go to that size comparison right now. Oh yes. Now this is awesome. And alongside the new 25 centimeter Gargantua set, I have the 30 centimeter, yes, 2003 Godzilla from Tokyo SOS. All these figures are courtesy of the awesome company of X Plus. Yes. And you're probably wondering why I didn't choose a Showa Godzilla or a Heisei Godzilla. The reason why I chose this Godzilla, which is something that I think a lot of people don't really, either they have forgotten about or they kind of like just slept through it. But ironically, remember in Godzilla X Mechagodzilla 2002, they actually do reference Gaira in the film. So officially or unofficially, depends how you look at it, the Gargantuas are really in the Godzilla universe, even though they have never come across each other. But by them referencing Gaira in that film, obviously Gaira or the Gargantuas exist in the same universe as Godzilla. I think a lot of folks, because that scene is so brief when they're recapping of the military's advancements over the years and how they have fought these other monsters other than Godzilla. They also reference Mothra, who is clearly part of the Godzilla universe, and they show Gaira attacking the airport from War of the Gargantuas. So I guess that technically means that the Gargantuas are part of the Godzilla universe, even though we have never seen them come across each other. Now, I want to put these three together to see what would have happened if Godzilla would have fought the Gargantuas. And as awesome as the Gargantuas are, especially Gaira, I think it would take the both of them to fight Godzilla, honestly. Once again, the Gargantuas, are great foes individually, but I think for a challenge for the King of the Monsters, they will need to take them down together. And I think even though they never fought or came across each other in a live action film, I think they did come across each other in Godzilla Rulers of Earth. I don't know what issue that was, but I do know that in the comic books, or at least in the Godzilla Rulers of Earth, Godzilla and the Gargantuas have fought each other, and it did take Sanda and Gaira together to form a team to fight Godzilla. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they did fight this Millennium version of Godzilla. Also, another thing this works is because the fact that these, even though they're different scales, with the Gargantuas being 25 centimeter and Godzilla being 30 centimeter, this kind of does work, because in the Millennium series, at least this version of Godzilla, he was 55 meters tall, which makes him like 180 feet tall, 185 feet tall. Gaira is at 82 feet tall. Sanda is at almost 100 feet tall. So in a way, they do kind of work. They do kind of work together like this, you know. And one last thing. Remember that very, very last ending shot of Godzilla Tokyo SOS? Where you see a vault and you see like this DNA repository vault, and you see like the Godzilla 1954 DNA in like this little small little capsule, and then the door closes on the vault. Well, according to Wikizilla, apparently there not only Godzilla was there, but there was a whole vault full of DNA of other monsters, and Sanda and Gaira's name is on one of the is on two of the samples in there. So that's kind of like an Easter egg that maybe if Godzilla Final Wars didn't happen, maybe we could have gotten Godzilla versus the Gargantuas. I know there was they had planned to do that film at some point, but they never gotten around to it. It never got greenlit. But it's one of those situations that makes you wonder what would have happened if Godzilla fought the Gargantuas. Maybe Toho can revisit this when they open up their new cinematic universe, you know, after or maybe during the MonsterVerse, if they continue with the MonsterVerse. But this is a story I really would love to see Toho go into. Godzilla versus the Gargantuas. I would love to see how they bring these two together. And since they're my favorite kaijus of all time, at least three of my most favorite kaijus of all time, that's intriguing to me. But until that happens, these three being paired together right now will suffice. And they look really, really, really good. So that's pretty much it with the size comparisons between the original 25cm set of the Gargantuas and this new set. And of course right here with the King of the Monsters. And if you have this new set, why don't you put this Godzilla up against your Gargantuas or the Heisei version or a certain Showa one, and just have these great fantasy matchups that we can all love and appreciate and make us wonder what would have happened if Godzilla fought the Gargantuas. All right. And speaking of the Gargantuas, I'm gonna count down my top 5 reasons why I love 1966 War of the Gargantuas, and let's go to that commentary portion of the video right now. Okay, folks, I'm back with my final thoughts of this newly acquired set of the X Plus 25cm Rick exclusive edition of the Gargantuas from Sanda vs. Gaira, or War of the Gargantuas. And to finalize this review, let's talk about my 5 reasons why, my top 5 reasons why I love this epic kaiju film from 1966. Yes, yes, yes. And first and foremost, the reason why I love this film so much is because of the electrifying, awe-inspiring, just breakout performance of Russ Tamblyn.
I thought he was gonna shit.
I'm just joking on that one. Yeah, trust me, there are a lot of things to love about this film, and he ain't one of them. But I talked about that on a couple occasions in the past. Don't want to give that too much attention. Let's focus on the positive. Let's focus on why this film is awesome instead of focusing on why this film can be considered lame. Trust me, this film is far from being lame. It really is an epic kaiju film through and through. First and foremost, the reason why I love this film so much is the antagonist of Gaira. Yes, Gaira really carries this movie. I know I talked about this film on a couple of occasions, so I'm going to try to skim through as fast as I can through my reasoning here why I love the film so much, because I've detailed it so many different times in the past, and I don't want to keep y'all here longer than what I have to. So I just skim through as I possibly can, fast as I possibly can. But yes, Gaira is such an effective villain. I maintain to this day that he is the best kaiju villain of all time in the genre of tokusatsu or Japanese special effects. Such an amazing film, and since he's the one that gets the most screen time between the two Gargantuas, he really does carry the movie. Up until Santa's appearance midway through the film almost comes across as a horror film in a way, you know, with the film opening, you know, with that ship in that rainy storm at night, they gets attacked by the octopus, and then the octopus gets attacked by Gaira, then Gaira turns around and attacks that same ship that the octopus was attacking. Then Gaira goes about the coastal waters of Japan, picking people off and eating people and killing people. Then he makes his surprise appearance at the airport. Then he makes his way towards the mountains where the military engages him. Really just an awesome performance and just an awesome antagonist in Gaira. And then once Santa reveals himself and once he realizes how evil Gaira is and needs to be stopped, really at the end of the film, when they have a knockdown, drag out a fair fight, really at the end of the day, it's all about stopping Gaira. So at the end of the day, it really is an awesome film due to the fact that Gaira is such an effective villain. As I mentioned before, really it's the villain that carries these stories. It's the villain that really makes the story worthwhile. And I have to say, through and through, Gaira is such an amazing villain, and he does more than his share to carry the weight in this film. And he's such an effective villain and antagonist. So that's one reason why I love this film so much. Number two, Sanda. And between the two Gargantuas, Gaira in a way kind of gets the most attention because he is the villain and because he's so evil. But I think lost within that is Sanda. He really is a good protagonist, and he comes across as more of a tragic character. And I know there are some people out there that probably won't look at these kaiju creatures as characters, but honestly, these kaijus are more characters or have more characters to them than the actual human cast. Trust me when I say that. And Sanda between the two has the most character because, you know, he just comes across as such a tragic figure in this film. When he comes across Gaira for the first time, everything that Sanda does, he can't really speak or formulate any kind of like clear communication. But when he comes across Gaira that's about to be killed by the military, you know, he intervenes and basically through hand gestures, he just tells the military to ward off and just stop, you know, let's not do this anymore. And then when he confronts Gaira at the end, it's the same thing with him shaking his head, you know, just with his hand gesture saying, you know what, let's not do this. Let's not come to blows. Let's figure out a way to get around this, even though Gaira doesn't see that. But through it all, it's just an awesome characterization of Sanda. It really is. A very tragic, a very emotional characterization of this kaiju that I think, like I said, gets lost when you talk about the two Gargantuas, because in my opinion, I think Gaira gets the most attention. But trust me, through it all, it wouldn't have worked without Sanda either. You know, he has as much to do with the success of this film, especially the success of the fight scene, just as much as Gaira does. So that's one of the reasons why I love this film so much, the characterization or the portrayal of Sanda. Number three, the fight scene. And that's the thing. This is Inoshiro Honda at its best. Inoshiro Honda storytelling at its best, where he conveys a lot of emotion, and conveys a lot of just great building blocks to tell a story, you know? Because I know when it comes to the title of the film, The War of the Gargantuas, I know it can be a very misleading title, because honestly, the war doesn't really happen until the very end, until the third act. But what's so intriguing about this film is the build up to the war, you know what I'm saying? And when Sanda comes across Gaira after he just got done feeding on some humans, Sanda doesn't agree with that. But see, to Gaira, that's normal. You know what I mean? Because Gaira, being a wild animal that was raised in the wild, no different than a shark or a bear, he's just doing what is best for him, even though he kind of takes things a little bit too far. He's a product of his environment. But Sanda doesn't see it that way. And then after that, you know, that scuffle that the first scuffle that they had, at that point, Sanda becomes an ally, somewhat of an ally in Gaira's eyes. But with that one act of him taking that tree and whacking him with it, he went from being a partial ally to just a full-blown enemy. Because Gaira, being so twisted and so chaotic driven, he's very irrational. He doesn't see what Sanda was trying to do. And so at the very end, when Sanda tries to confront Gaira, you know, you would think that they would just go back up, go at it again and pick up where they left off. But no, it's Sanda trying to reason with Gaira, try to convince Gaira not to do this, not to fight, to calm down. Let's go away and try and work this out, even to the point of him getting some punishment. You know what I mean? And then there's one scene where Sanda tries to hold Gaira down, tries to control him. Every attempt that Sanda tries to do to try and control Gaira, or at least calm him down, is not working. But you can tell it's taking everything in him to control Gaira. You know what I mean? But then that one time, that one act, when they get to the pier, when Gaira is just beyond reason, he just hauls up and punches Sanda in the chest with enough force that causes Sanda to go back into this building And Sanda gives Gaira a look, and I always love that part in the film when Sanda gives him a look that says, you know what, that's it. I tried to reason with you. I tried to make things right with you. I tried to solve this or resolve this matter in a very, very diplomatic way, but you pushed me to the point of no return. At that point, that's when they really go at it. And it's one of the best fight scenes ever recorded on film, especially between two kaijus. So the fight scene is really, really good, and it does live up to the war. And once again, like I said, with War of the Gargantuas being a very misleading title, because the war is not something that happens throughout the film. It happens just really, really late in the film. But the build up to the war and when the war finally happens really makes up for it. So that's why I love this film so much, because of the official war between the two monsters. Yes, I love the fight scene between Gaira and Sanda. Another reason why I love this film is really the ending, which is kind of a sad ending. Once again, this Inashiro Honda storytelling at its best. After the fights takes shifts from the city into the bay and into further out to sea, and then all of a sudden that underwater volcano explodes near the Gargantuas, which I've heard some folks say that's kind of an abrupt ending. It's kind of a weak ending to bring about the destruction of the monsters, but at the same time you have to realize the same thing happened in the previous film, Frankenstein Conquers the World, where, a fire, then an earthquake, brings about the destruction of the monsters, or at least the destruction of Frankenstein. So here it takes another natural disaster to bring about the destruction of the monsters, and it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't bother me, not in the least. But what's so interesting about that scene, and kind of sad really, is just the music from the master, Akira Ifukube, that you kind of feel for both of the Gargantuas. Even Gaira, I know Gaira is the villain, but at the same time you have to understand, even though he's a bloodthirsty villain, he still is a product of his own environment. Gaira can't help the way that he is, just like Sanda can't help the way that he is. And it's just unfortunate that these clash in personalities or clash in the backgrounds between the two Gargantuas is really forcing them to fight. And then you really feel more for Sanda, because you realize, when they get closer and closer to the volcano with the bubbling and boiling, churning water, and the explosions are happening around the volcano, and you just realize then that Gaira has made the decision that he has to die with Gaira for everything to be okay. And that's another, like I said, another thing from Inashiro Honda, just that storytelling, that tragic storytelling that sometimes the good guy doesn't come out on top in the end. And there are a few examples where you can point to where Inashiro Honda was directing, where the ending is really bittersweet. You can look towards the original Godzilla. Even though Godzilla dies at the end, you get Serizawa dies at the end also, which is bittersweet. And he wishes Emiko and Ogata well, so that was tragic. Or the end of Terra Mecha Godzilla, even though Godzilla wins, the whole Katsura tragedy, or what's another film? Oh, Rodan. Even though the Rodans cause a lot of destruction, but towards the tail end when the volcano erupts, and then one Rodan succumbs, and then the other Rodan refuses to live without his mate, and he chooses to die alongside his mate, kind of like the Gargantuas. Once again, that ending is it's sad, but at the same time, it's a fitting end for the Gargantuas, because at the same time, it wouldn't have been cool if one of them lived. With Sanda, let's just say Sanda would have lived, right? It wouldn't have been a good existence for him, because he would have been tormented for the rest of his life, honestly. Because even though he did spawn Gaira, even though it wasn't intentional, he wouldn't have had a peaceful existence if he did continue to survive, On the same token, we can't have a monster like Gaira running around, murdering people and killing people. So I thought it was a fitting end to the Gargantuas. Once again, it's a very, very sad ending, especially with the music, But I thought as an ending, I thought it really served this movie and served the Gargantuas well. So that's one of the reasons why I love this film so much, is the ending toward the Gargantuas. And the last reason why I love this film so much, that this really is a great alternative kaiju film. When it comes to kaiju films, and that's the thing, I didn't really appreciate this film when I first saw it when I was younger. But now that I've gotten older, this film basically checks off all the boxes that I want to see when it comes to a kaiju film, and maybe you do too. Does it have a great story? It checks that box. Does it have a great villain? It checks that box. Does it have a great music score? It checks that box. Does it have a great protagonist? It checks that box. Is it just a great alternative to the Godzilla films and Gamera films? It checks that box. You know, does it present the military in a good light? It checks that box. Everything that you want to know or love about this kaiju film. Does it have a great fight scene? It checks that box. Everything about this film, or everything about the kaiju genre that you love, is all encompassed into this one film. And what's so cool about this film, that even though it's technically a sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World, you don't necessarily need to see Frankenstein Conquers the World to enjoy this film. Because in the Japanese version, this basically are Sanda and Gaira are basically the spawn of Frankenstein from Frankenstein Conquers the World. But the reason why they changed it to Gargantuas because honestly, Sanda and Gaira doesn't really look too much like Frankenstein. And I can understand that because when I see the Gargantuas, I don't see Frankenstein. Maybe in the head a little bit. But I think there was a good way to go to Americanize this film by presenting them as all new creatures versus variations of the Frankenstein creature from the previous film. So I actually enjoy them being Gargantuas versus being, you know, the spawn of Frankenstein, you know. But far as an alternative film, this film covers all bases. You know, it has drama, it has a little bit of horror, it has a great kaiju fight scene, has a little bit of comedy in there. Basically, it's pretty much almost a perfect movie. It really is. So if I can convince y'all through my reasoning to check out this film, please check it out. You know what I mean? It really is a great film. And it's a great alternative film. Like I said, in comparison to Godzilla, Gamera, and Ultraman, you know, we all love those films or those TV shows involving those characters. But once again, there are great alternative films out there that you can sink your teeth into, like King Kong Escapes, like Frankenstein Conquers the World, like Atragon, like The Mysterians, and, of course, in my opinion, the best alternative that Toho had to offer during that golden age of kaiju science fiction films in the 60s. You can't get no better than 1966, Frankenstein's Monster Sanda vs. Gaira, or better yet, War of the Gargantuas. You know what I mean? So that pretty much concludes my review of the X Plus 25cm newly acquired Rick exclusive set of Sanda vs. Gaira from the epic kaiju film from 1966, Sanda vs. Gaira, Frankenstein's Monster Sanda vs. Gaira, or better yet, War of the Gargantuas. Yes. If you have any questions, holler me down in the comment section. Hit me up on Facebook via Leslie P. Chambers. We definitely go from there. Yes, once again, a great set. It really is a great set. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want this set, I think the time is now to try and get one. The only problem is, once again, it's a Rick exclusive set. So if you want one now, even now, you're going to have to put in some legwork in trying to find it before it jumps up in price. Because like other S Plus figure releases, whenever a release happens, after it stays on the aftermarket for like a week to 2 weeks, going into a month, the price just skyrockets, and even more so on Rick exclusives. So if you really want this set, you know, weigh the pros and cons as I mentioned earlier. Now, if you have the original 25cm set, and if you're kind of iffy on whether you need this set or if you don't have the money for it, I think you're fine with what you got. But if you have the extra money for it, and if you're a huge Gargantua fan like I am, go after it. You can't go wrong with this set. I highly do recommend it. All right. Once again, lots of stuff is coming on the channel. At the time of this recording, I'm scheduling a live stream Q&A this upcoming Saturday, April the 13th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on Let's Chambers Kaiju Reviews here on YouTube, where I will talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, whatever questions you want to throw my way. So once again, lots of stuff is coming here on the channel. The live stream Q&A, figure reviews of Ebera, the 2004 Godzilla 25cm, all S Plus figures, mind you. The Gigantic 89 when it drops, the King Ghidorah 1964 when it drops. I still got to do the Favorite Sculptors line, Varan. Just lots of stuff is coming here on the channel. Please stay tuned. You will not be disappointed. And get this set. Get this set, this newly acquired Rick exclusive set, Frankenstein's Monster Sanda vs. Gaira, better yet, the War of the Gargantuas. Alright? So I thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on this figure move review. Alright? Y'all take it easy.